Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I guess what is almost, I don't know if it's actually breaking news, but I don't even know if it's news. But evidently Devin Nunes has been banned from Twitter. They're silencing conservative voices again. No, they're just silencing stupid people, I think. And that's probably not a bad thing, to be honest. I am thrilled to know that I just checked, Devin Nunes' cow is still on Twitter. So at least we have that. And here to share some thoughts on the day's impeachment, maybe get some thoughts on the Twitter ban. I've asked our good friend Max Burns to come talk with us. Max is one of my favorite columnists. One of my favorite people, but one of my favorite columnists over at the Daily Beast. Max, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you.
So, am I getting this right? The Kremlin gremlin, Devin Nunes banned from the Twitters?
It appears it has finally happened, though it seems that only his official House account was suspended. His campaign account is still active, which is a great statement of where Devin Nunes' priorities are as a lawmaker.
Again, he said something stupid, did something stupid, accountability. And this is, for me, a perfect moment. And this is where I think we can reunite the country, because I remember a day, and I don't know that you're old enough to remember, to be honest, but I remember when Republicans used to believe in responsibility, personal responsibility, when laws mattered, when accountability mattered. That's a long time ago. I get it. But I think there's a moment where we can unify around those things. And when you say something dumb, you get banned. I think at some point we can agree on that.
I think you're right. And I think that there's going to be no small amount of relief internally, probably among some Republicans, that Devin Nunes is a little bit silenced here for at least a little bit. And it's true. I mean, we've become much more polarized. The Republican Party has gone all the way to the right. The Democrats have even moved somewhat to the left. And you can't really have any kind of bipartisanship or working together when there are people like Devin Nunes, whose fundraising, whose entire message depends on people staying divided. The only way you fix it is to get rid of those troublemakers.
Yep. No, I'm with you. And now you've got the new head of the Republican Party, this Marjorie Taylor Greene, and you can thank the Democrats for that. Let me ask you, before we get into the impeachment today, because I was against the idea of taking her off the committees. I think it was a waste of time. I think we shouldn't have bothered with it. She was an albatross around the Republicans' neck that we should have hung them with. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on her being removed from the Education and Labor committees?
I've unfortunately followed Marjorie Taylor Greene for quite a while, and the most I can say is that there's never a bad time to do the right thing. This was something that, if nothing else, morally and ethically, we needed to do to preserve the integrity of the body that is Congress. And allowing Marjorie Taylor Greene to run around on committees spewing nonsense without any accountability sends a terrible message. And if anything, the next 4 years are going to be the accountability years for the Republican Party. And whether they accept that or not, I think this is starting to happen to them externally and increasingly within their own party.
Yeah, see, I agree that that you had to do something. I just don't think the Democrats were the ones to do it. The Republicans should have cleaned their own house. And if it's me, I want her on those committees. So when she does say something really stupid, which is probably would have been every day, I could turn to her and go, "You're the reason we need more funding in public education. We're the reason we need civic education. We're the reason we need stronger labor laws. You're basically the reason for everything that's wrong." And I would do that daily. And now we've been cheated out of that.
Well, in the end, there is a place for that. And the Congress, though it may have been turned into this under Republicans, isn't supposed to be a circus. We're not supposed to tune in and be shocked and appalled every day. It's where the boring and often hard work of government gets done. And if there are people who are invested in stopping that at any cost, they have to go. There's just no way to be functional with those people there.
I agree with you. Before we get into the impeachment, what do you do in 2 years if she wins again? Do we go back through that again?
That's the question. One of the things about expulsion is that it's still possible voters could just put her right back in Congress. And then Nancy Pelosi would be facing a real challenge in seating her again or expelling her again. This is going to be a case where I think voters will get sick of the embarrassment, in the same way North Carolina voters were humiliated by the trans bathroom bans, to the point where they kicked all the Republicans out. I don't think Georgia voters like to be portrayed the way Marjorie Taylor Greene portrays them. And, you're never going to profit by calling voters stupid hicks like she does.
Except hers. We'll see. We'll see how this plays out. Let's get to today. Lots of to steal a line from one of Trump's defense lawyers. Lots of words. There are a lot of words. A lot of words in the Constitution. I'm using a lot of words. That's basically what it was. It was a lot of words.
It was, and they were confusing words. I mean, it's one of the rare performances where a defense attorney has actually managed to turn more people against his client as he talks. I mean, we came out of this with Murkowski, with John Cornyn, who's been a Trump defender, straight up saying they didn't understand a thing they just heard, and they weren't sure what case the president's team was trying to prove. It got to the point that it was so bad that Bill Cassidy, a Republican senator from Louisiana, actually switched his opinion and said, you know what? If this is the argument that that it's unconstitutional, I have to side with the Democrats on this. And that's some incredible news for a time when you don't really see Republicans crossing the aisle on anything.
Yeah, no, see, for me, this was that moment where this should have been, probably a 70 to 30 vote, because all this was, is it constitutional that we're going to do our jobs? Are we going to be the body that judges this president? The House did their job, passed an impeachment. Are you going to do your job? For me, that's all this vote was. It wasn't for me about, we're going to stop Donald Trump from running for president. For me, it was more along the lines of, we're going to stop future presidents from going, I can do whatever the hell I want in the last month, and I'm totally unaccountable to anyone. That to me is the bigger problem in all of this. If he gets away with this, I guess the future is any president can commit any crime they want.
And it seems like that's the case. And I think Democratic impeachment managers said it very well when they said that the president essentially pointed a cannon at the Capitol and pointed for where they should go and told them to go. And when you look at the charts that were put forward in earlier parts of this briefing, it's almost a direct line. You can watch them go from the rally to the Capitol and start smashing things in. The idea that the GOP, is so captured by Trump that they can't even hold him accountable on something that is so transparent really should scare a lot of people who might otherwise consider themselves to be Republicans.
No, I mean, some of the early polling that I talked about today, the CBS YouGov poll, basically, they asked if Trump started his own party, asking Republicans, would you join? And it was a third said, they'd join Trump's party. 37% maybe. Only 30% said no. So, I mean, you look at that question, that's on the thoughts and the minds of McConnell and the rest of the Republican Party.
Oh, absolutely. And that pretty much describes where the GOP is at. You have a third that are devoutly Trumpist and will censure any senators who oppose the president in any way. You have about a third who seem generally opposed to what the president has done, though not very loudly, and another third that's waiting to see which side wins. And the answer is going to be nobody. I mean, when this many people in a party are cowed into silence and afraid to take a stand, that doesn't say good things about where you are as a major national party.
No, and the thing is, and this is the argument I made yesterday, we need to have a vibrant two-party system. I would love to live in a place where we could have a three-party system. That's never going to happen in my view. But you need to have a vibrant, at least two-party system that has ideas on both sides. My problem is the Republicans have been the party of Trump and ultimately the party of no ideas. And in fact, first time in my lifetime, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the first time in a long time that a party ran with no platform. In 2020, they literally had no platform. They basically just said, yeah, whatever he wants.
Yeah, they just reused the 2016 platform, not even copy editing it to take out the claims that the current president is a failure. I mean, this was a very low effort job and it yielded the predictable result. And this is why one of the things I wrote last week for NBC News is a piece about Democrats being smart to not extend bipartisanship immediately, because you don't extend bipartisanship to a feral animal standing right next to you. You wait until there's somebody responsible who's willing to take up that work to work with. Bipartisanship is a privilege. It's not just granted because you exist. And that's one of the things that I'm glad to see more Democrats are starting to stand behind.
Yeah, that and this idea that we're gonna have all this great unity and bipartisanship. How can you do that when you reach your hand out and they bite your hand off? Or you extend an olive branch and they take it from you and they whip you with it, which is what Republicans have been doing to Democrats for decades. And I'm glad to see finally that Biden has said, nope, we're going to move our rescue package along. If we can get bipartisanship, if we can get people to sign on where we don't have to use budget reconciliation, fabulous, great, we love it. But otherwise, if we get nothing, we're moving on our timetable. And I'm thrilled to see that.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the things that really excites the liberal base and the young left activists who are really worried about Joe Biden, is this fear that we were going to spend 4 years trying to negotiate with Republicans who have no interest in getting anything done. But Biden's made clear he'll listen to serious people. He hosted 10 Republicans at the White House to share their plan. He said it's not good enough. They said we're not interested in countering, and we moved on. We are no longer waiting for Republican permission to do the work of the American people.
No, it's something that we need now. I understand. Obviously today is done. The trial will move forward tomorrow. I'm told there's going to be some new information. There's new evidence coming out that I'm guessing is going to be shocking. My mind is I would love to see what Trump was doing while the Capitol was under attack. I would love to know if the reports of him being gleeful are true, or if his defense people are saying, no, he was distraught. I'd like to know that. But more importantly, I'd like to follow the money that was behind all this. I would love to know who organized it. We know Trump campaign put $2.7 million into it. But I want to know those billionaires who funded this stuff. I want to follow the cash and hold them accountable. Sure, we got to get the people who defecated on the ground and leaked on Nancy Pelosi's desk. We got to get those vile people, absolutely. But I want the people behind them.
Yeah, and the idea that these are just people who are QAnon cranks or lunatics. The guy with the Viking helmet with the horns paints a picture that's almost goofy and harmless. But the truth is, there were groups like the Proud Boys, like the Oath Keepers, who were coordinating across state lines, who were sending large amounts of money to each other to secure buses, to conduct training camps on how to behave at this event. They were coordinating a terrorist attack in plain sight. And these are not jokers. They're not silly buffoons. These are people who came armed and ready to kill members of Congress. And that money came from somewhere. And it's important, I think, that the House and the Senate investigate seriously to figure out where that money came from.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And for me, you got to start breaking up some of these militia groups. And you've got to be. This is to me much like when we went after them after McVeigh blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. You've really got to go and start cracking down on this stuff because it's now out of hand.
Yeah, this is easily the most critical moment, especially for white supremacist far-right terrorism in at least my lifetime. I mean, I was a child when Ruby Ridge happened, when Timothy McVeigh blew up the Oklahoma City Murrah Federal Building. And that has come back now. And that's come back because we spent 4 years not only refusing to police it, but actively cheering it on from the White House. And now it's going to be twice the problem to root out. But it's something that the Department of Justice needs to take seriously. And fortunately, I see now we're finally scheduling Merrick Garland's hearing for Attorney General. So we will have a fully functional Department of Justice.
Wow, imagine that. Every day I keep waking up and going, I feel okay because I know Joe Biden's in the White House and I know that he's putting competent people into places that, maybe we get this pandemic under control. Maybe we save the economy from completely collapsing by smart investments. Maybe we can rebuild our infrastructure. Maybe we can do. I'm in a hopeful stage. I'm not optimistic. I'm hopeful. I think there's a difference.
And I'm hopeful as well. I think the executive orders at the start were a great start, ending the wall, ending the Muslim ban, starting the process of reuniting migrant children that were torn from their families. But Joe Biden and Democrats know you can't just govern with executive orders. And the legislative wing of this has always been where Democrats sort of stumble. So to see us just say, we're going to go through on reconciliation, you had your chance, it's a refreshing bit of spine that we've built after this victory. And I think we've really earned it.
I'm right there with you. So last line of question, because I want to get a sense of how you see this playing out over the next couple of days. Jamie Raskin and the folks who are prosecuting this say they may not use up all their time, because I guess they get 16 hours, which is going to be a long 16 hours. How are you seeing this play out? Do we get this done by Monday, as some are saying, since we're taking Friday off for a religious holiday? Do you see this, going into next week? How do you see this playing out?
I see it going into next week, but I think both sides here have somewhat of an incentive to get this wrapped up. I mean, barring something very unlikely, we likely won't see the president convicted, and that's a real shame for the country.
Yeah.
But in my mind, the visual of this impeachment has already been created, and that's Republicans when Democrats showed video footage of the riots and of the attacks on police officers, and every Republican lowered their eyes. They looked at their tablets, they played with their papers. Nobody could look at the terrible results of their words. And until they can face that, I think that says a lot about where they are.
Yeah, I was just talking about this with my wife earlier today. And, we know that there were people who were going in there to look for AOC. There were people who were going in there looking for Mike Pence. There were people who were going looking for the squad. And my mind went to, I understand that. What happens had they grabbed Ben Sass, Cassidy? What happens if they grabbed, Josh Hawley? What happens and didn't know who they were? Because or some of the Kennedy from Louisiana, or go down the list. Would they still have been as rabid? And those senators have got to be thinking for themselves. Had they captured us, would I have been swinging from those gallows? Would they have ripped us to shred in the hall and right here in this hallowed ground? And I think they've got to be asking themselves that question, or somebody's got to ask them that.
And they certainly are. I mean, I think you're seeing a growing number of people, at least privately, realizing that this was the point where words and what was treated like almost a fundraising outrage game for the GOP became all too real, all too fast. And some of them were about 90 seconds away from getting punched in the face at the least. And that's not something you forget when you're used to feeling very safe in everything you do.
No, it's an excellent point. Fortunately, we don't know what would have happened, but I think a lot of us could guess. And it's not good stuff. But Max, I always appreciate the time. Good talking with you. I hope folks will check out your work over at the Daily Beast. One of my favorite columnists over there. Good stuff, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Like I said, Max Burns, check out his work over at the Daily Beast. We'll get links out. Quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.